Thank you. Are we live? Okay. So welcome everybody to day 2 of the EPALE Community Conference. Did you have a good day yesterday? Were the workshops fantastic? Wonderful. You will have an opportunity to see some of the wonderful graphics that were created for those workshops a little bit later, but I'm really pleased that you enjoyed it. And welcome to our online community. We know you were watching, several hundred people were watching yesterday, and we expect you, like yesterday, to play an important part in today's event as well. Just as a reminder, if you're watching us on the EPALE platform and you'd like to submit questions or comments, you've got to be registered and logged in to do that, so make sure that you are. And if you're watching us on social media or here in the room, please use, we've got 2 hashtags we'd like you to use so we can track the conversation on social media. So this is the 10th anniversary. So of course, one hashtag is EPALE10, and the second one is EPALE Community Conference. It's a bit long, but that way we can track what you're saying about this event. So yesterday we had a chance to explore how adult learning has evolved over the last 10 years. And we also had a chance to get a sense of how the EPALE community has evolved. And I promised you I'd give you some more statistics from the platform. Now, I asked my colleagues to open up the box and have a look in the back of the website. So I found some interesting information about the 170,000 registered users. When do you publish your material? Well, the most popular time is between 9 and 10 a.m. So first thing in the morning, when you get there, you're inspired and you publish. However, there are a few outliers. Some countries are what we call the early birds. So Estonia, Latvia, Slovenia, and Turkey, for you, the most popular time to publish is between 8 and 9 a.m. So you start early. We've got some people who like to publish during lunch. That's colleagues in Croatia, Cyprus, Finland, Lithuania, and Serbia. Between 1 and 2, that's the high point of when you put materials online. And then we've got people who they've had their afternoon coffee and they think, something I could post. That's Ireland and Italy. Between 3 and 4 p.m., that's your top time of posting. So if that's when people upload, when do people look at the content? Well, I've got, again, some information. It's between 10 and 12 a.m. So you've got to the office, you're starting to go through your emails, and you think, I'll just check what's new on EPALE. Again, a few countries outside that area, Bosnia and Herzegovina and Iceland, you are the early birds. Bosnia, you both post early and you look early, because between 8 and 9 a.m. is when most people are looking at the site. Again, we've got some people who like to look over lunch. So that's Croatia, Estonia, Finland, Latvia, and Slovenia. You are the lunchtime browsers with your sandwich. You just check out what's on EPALE. We have the afternoon, our coffee drinkers, that's Italy, Lithuania, and Portugal, between 3 and 4 p.m. And Malta, you are our evening viewers. The time when people from Malta most look at the website is 9 p.m. So that's our glass of wine group who check out there. So thank you. We can see that throughout the day, we have different rhythms of when people publish and when they look at it. But clearly, there's quite a lot of people in the morning, first thing in the morning, that's a good time to get it. So what do they look at? Well, the average user posts about 4 pieces of content per year, but our super users, our highest publisher, publishes 120 pieces of content in a single year. 52 weeks in the year, that's at least 2 articles a week. So someone out there is really putting out lots of material. So let's see how many people we can move from the average 4 up towards the higher level, because I've just told you there are people who look regularly at different times in the day. And the articles that are most used are where you've got resources, so in-depth articles or studies with PDFs, content on digital and basic skills, that's highly appreciated. Innovative pedagogical methodologies, new techniques that you can use, people are interested in that. If you've got an infographic, those are also popular. And materials around sustainability and green issues, those are also highly popular. So I hope I've given you the keys to how to publish, what people look for when they look at it, and that means you'll be even more successful at getting greater reach for your materials, because as we said, 70% of the material is published by you. So, having given you that background, I'm delighted to say that we now have a short video of welcome and introduction from the Executive Vice President of the European Commission. So let's now watch her video.
Everyone, it is a pleasure to join you to celebrate 10 years of the European online platform for adult learning, EPALE. During this time, the platform has grown into a vibrant community of more than 170,000 members. Every month, around 100,000 people visit it to exchange ideas, to find inspiration, and to learn from each other. What makes this platform truly special is, however, you. More than 70% of the content comes directly from the members. Your stories, your projects, and your passion have turned it into Europe's home for adult learning professionals. You are shaping the future of adult education. Your role is central to our vision for the Union of Skills. We want a continent of lifelong learners, where everyone has the chance to keep growing, adapting and shaping their own future. Because the pace of change around us is faster than ever. The skills we have today may not be enough tomorrow. And yet, only 40% of adults in Europe take part in learning each year, far from our target of 60% by 2030. And the people who most need training often have the least access to it. Think of those with lower skills, the vulnerable people, or those living in less developed regions. That must change. As part of our Union of Skills strategy, we want to make learning more relevant, more accessible, and more inclusive. By expanding opportunities for short and targeted training through micro-credentials, and by mainstreaming individual learning accounts across the European Union. And through community learning spaces, both offline and online, like yours. To support professionals in adult learning to develop alternative approaches. To stimulate adults at risk of exclusion to engage in learning activities in trusted or new environments. Expanding these initiatives is a key priority for the years ahead. As you know, the platform is part of the Erasmus Plus program. This summer, we just proposed to increase funding for Erasmus Plus by 50% under the next EU budget. This will allow us and this fabulous platform to reach more people and make the platform even more inclusive and diverse. Thank you for your commitment to make lifelong learning a real possibility for everyone. And here is to the next 10 years.
So thank you for that. And as we've heard, we have the community conference, and the community is made up not just of this central conference, but the side activities that are organized in a number of different countries. And we've got 11 side events that were happening yesterday and today. Yesterday, we had a live link up to Kosice in Slovakia. And today, I'm delighted to say that we have colleagues from Belgium who are here to tell us a little bit about it. So please come and join me. I have Marco Cecchinato, Madi Bolin, and Chantal Pierrot. Please, welcome. Take the microphone and tell us what you've got planned.
Marco de la Fédération Wallonie-Bruxelles.
Mein Name ist Chantal Pierrot und im Namen von EPALE aus Belgien heiße ich Sie recht herzlich willkommen.
En goedemorgen, ik ben Madi Bolle, ik ben de EPALE-coördinator voor Vlaanderen en ook van harte welkom van mijn kant uit.
Yes, so today in the frame of the 10 years celebration of EPALE, we joined our forces, and here in this very premises we are organizing a side event starting at 2 o'clock this afternoon. So we made it in the context of connect, cooperate and celebrate. Connect, of course, because the platform is there for connection, for making first contacts, then going further and cooperate. And today is really a day to celebrate. So I pass on the floor to my colleague Marco, and he will tell a little bit about our program.
Yeah, thank you, Chantal. Yeah, the program is very a short one because we will act for a few hours here in BIP. We will start with opening speeches with the European Commission and also with the directors of the national agency. Then we will have live testimonials from our ambassadors live on stage. Then we will have yes, the highlight of this event, it will be a keynote theater performance. It's a theater piece about artificial intelligence. And then, of course, in order to celebrate it well, we'll have a piece of cake and a glass of bubbles.
So it's a unique opportunity for you also to join us. So to connect, to cooperate, and of course to celebrate the achievements of the past 10 years. And also to look forward to the next coming 10 years or longer, of course, in the age of AI. So if you would like to join us, there are still some free seats, so please be welcome this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So that's a wonderful example of the kinds of added value that the National Support Services are adding to our central conference. So to go more in depth about that, and if you're interested or intrigued by artificial intelligence, that's the place to go. So now I'm going to move to our keynote speaker this morning, and I'm delighted to invite to come and join me here on stage, Raffaele Toncik-Sorinch, the co-director of Ashoka Austria and director of the Ashoka Visionary Program. And the title for this is, every great transformation begins with a vision. But what turns vision into reality? Now, we know that this community, and here we've got people from across Europe and beyond, and I know our online audience is from even further afield. Everyone is absolutely passionate about the power of learning to transform lives and to build resilience in society. So we've got the vision part here, but what's particularly interesting for you is you can share the experience on how you help people to take that vision and make it concrete and practical. So maybe you could start by just telling us a little bit about the Ashoka program.
Yeah, so I am part of a global network, really, an NGO that's called Ashoka, one of the very few global NGOs. And what we did was we really built up the field of social entrepreneurship in the world. So founded in 1980, we started by looking for people who have come up with system-changing solutions for societal problems. And we started in India, actually. Our founder, Bill Drayton, is an American. He was a partner at McKinsey at that time. And he saw that there are entrepreneurs who are not profit-oriented, but who want to achieve a certain impact foremost. And that these people usually cannot spread their impact that they want to have because there is no support system for them. There are no subsidies. People don't know what they're doing. There was no profession that was somehow similar to what they were doing. And so we started by selecting these people. And in the meantime, we have around 4,000 of these Ashoka Fellows, as we call them, active in about 100 countries. Among them are also, in the meantime, 5 Nobel Peace Prize laureates. Maria Corina Machado, for example, she won the Nobel Peace Prize this year, and she's an Ashoka Fellow from Venezuela, as you all know, and she was elected for her work with children and building up support systems for children in Venezuela. I have many other examples that I will give in the course of this conversation. The point is, what we set out to do was we wanted to find a way to support people who really change the world. And that's, kind of the perspective that we have. And in many cases, we did that. In our last impact report, we realized that the solutions of these Ashoka Fellows, or the work of these Ashoka Fellows, impacted the lives of 650 million people around the world. So we are a support organization to facilitate this change. And in the course of working with these social entrepreneurs, we learned a lot. We learned how they really made it in a way. We codified certain tools that could help others who, they're constantly running against walls. So how can you really make this knowledge, this very practical knowledge, available for everyone to get inspired and also to help them achieve their goals ultimately? Yeah.
Thank you. So what's interesting there is, you've identified how, to have impact, you've got to have a vision, but also an enabling environment that helps people to, break down the different steps that are needed for their vision and get momentum. I think that's really interesting. What lessons can we take from the Ashoka program? Because we talked about that yesterday, that within the EPALE community, we're often working with disadvantaged, marginalized communities, people who have fallen through the cracks and need support to get back in. And that can be really quite challenging and often a lonely process, trying to develop programs that would support them. Looking at the impact that the Ashoka Fellows have had around the world, what lessons would you draw from that you would share to inspire the EPALE community?
To turn weakness into a strength. I think that's the first thing that comes to mind. Many Ashoka Fellows who are working with marginalized communities, they see, for example, Torkild Sonne, an Ashoka Fellow from Denmark. He had still has a son with, you called it autism. In the meantime, it's neurodiversion. And he saw that this child has special skills. And they came back from a trip through Europe, and they looked at, they were still traveling with a map. Yeah, do you still remember when we had these maps and we were in Europe, and then at the first page you had all these squares and so forth. And they came back from this journey, and this 7-year-old boy, he drew this map perfectly out of his memory. And this was the moment that Torkild realized, I might have my issues or there are problems with this child, but he has such amazing potential in other sectors. And that's when he started something that's called Specialisterne. That's an organization, a company really, that trains people with autism to become part of the workforce. So you see, this so-called weakness can also be a strength, and it only depends on how you look at it and if you're able to really come up with a solution. I want to give another example, if I have the time. A German Ashoka Fellow, Andreas Heinecke, amazing man, and he had the idea to change our perspective on how we look at people that are blind. So he was the one, he always says, I'm in the dark business. So he was the one who invented actually this dialogue in the dark that has scaled in over 60 countries. And I'm not sure, some of you might have done it once. So you are actually, you come into a place that is really completely dark, and you are guided by the blind people through the landscape of this dark place. And there you become from the seeing one, the one who is able to, navigate everything. You become the person who is in need of something and is guided by someone with a so-called disability. And it's a very intense experience also, I feel, where you actually feel this transition or this transformation also in your body. So in our network, we do have a lot of these examples, and you learn that you can change the perspective of how you see so-called weaknesses or problems if you want to. I have another example.
Yes, please. I was going to say, I actually went to that restaurant in Paris, well, one of them,
Yeah.
the Dine in the Dark, and it was quite an extraordinary experience. It was very disorientating.
Yeah.
and I realized how much, even though the eyes and the ears are different senses, suddenly I couldn't tell whether a sound was close to me or further away because I didn't have any visual cues to help me. And just for that one evening, I still remember it 15 or more years later because it was so strange and different as an experience. So yes, it has a big impact. Yes, please give us another example.
Yeah, there's a Belgium Ashoka fellow actually, whom I admire a lot. His name is Arnaud Raskin, and he used to be a social worker, and he was working in South America, and he saw with street children. And normally your approach would be, you know, street children, they need to go home or they need to be taken care of and things like that. And they were trying to do that, but he saw that many of these children didn't want to go back home and didn't want to go back to wherever they were taken care of because of a real issue, because there was violence, because there were other problems. And so they had chosen to be on the street. And what did he do then? He said, so if this is so, I need to go to them and learn with them. And so he founded what he called a street MBA. And he was going to the places they were, and with a blackboard, you call it, yeah, with a blackboard, and he developed a whole tool set. Yeah, and this is, he still does that actually. So with this tool set, he goes to the streets, and there the children can come and learn where they really are. Yeah, I find this a very beautiful example. He's actually based here in Brussels. So if you're ever curious to see what he does now, he did a lot of other things, and he's now consulting with children, you know, how to unleash this potential of these children. It's really heartwarming, and it's a big, you know, something to aspire to, really, to be able to do that in that way.
Thank you. And in a little bit, I'm going to open the floor to questions and comments, contributions from you. And I'll also be keeping an eye via Sarah. She is the voice of our online communities, and she'll bring their questions in. So get ready for when I open the floor. I was really struck at the beginning. You said that the sort of process of Ashoka looks for people who have passion and vision and energy and who want to change the world. They want to have real impact. So what are the tools that you offer people to help analyze and understand how to make their vision happen? Because, you know, nobody has a magic wand. Not even you has a magic wand to say, you've got a great vision, here it is. So what are these sort of systematic tools that you offer to people? Because, again, I think that's interesting because we have in the EPALE community trainers and people who develop education packages for people who want to change their lives, want to change their society. So some of those tools might be really interesting. And again, you may remember at the beginning, I shared what are the stats of the most interesting articles that people use. It's the resource kits. So help us to understand what kind of tools are most useful.
Yeah, so that was one of the big questions that we had as an organization. No, so we were working with these social entrepreneurs. There was all around the world with colleagues all around the world, and how can we approach with very little resources also this sharing of knowledge and this codifying of knowledge, and we started really to do that in a very systematically about 10, 12 years ago, where we kind of started with really pulling together the tools that we had been using actually or developing over time. And we have now, and I'm really proud to say that there is an online possibility to access these tools for free. So we have courses on system change, for example. We have courses on mindset shift, because this is the gold standard. You know, how do you change minds? about a certain problem. We have courses on scaling and funding and whatnot. So it's all there, and I think it will be shared with you, the link that's online, and you can do that whenever you want. We also, and that's what I founded, have a program, and you should call it the Ashoka program, thank you, but it's just the Ashoka Visionary Program, where that is in person, and it's an executive leadership program really, where you can learn how to solve societal problems in an entrepreneurial way. We share many of these tools there as well, but it is really, as we are not an education provider, we are an NGO, we can share the knowledge that we have, the very practical knowledge in our organization. So that's what we do in a very transformational learning journey. I mean, we were free to do whatever we wanted, yeah? And so I came from a university, the University of Vienna, where I built up the Executive Academy, the business school of the Vienna University. And and I knew that if I wanted to come up with an executive program like that, it really, one of the prerogatives is that there is nothing in there that you can learn anywhere else. Yeah, so no marketing, no HR management, nothing. Yeah, this is gonna be on what we can really, what our USP really is, namely how to create systemic change, how to become a social entrepreneur, and how to become someone who is supported by a community to lead transformation. And yeah, so what we do, for example, we start with a group of 25, 30 people. When they get to know each other in a team building, they're not allowed to say what their profession is. Yeah, for example, only their first name, because we want to create trust, and we want to work with the people rather than with the professionals. And then we do things like, we call this change maker journey. Yeah? So the participants come up and reflect on, why am I actually doing this program, and what were the steps that led me to wish, to contribute to society in a more meaningful way. And we just had the first module of the 11th cohort in CEE last week, and I wasn't there because there's a colleague of mine who is leading this now, and there were many who actually cried, and so it's a very emotional thing. And I think that is the key for transformation. You have to touch the people's hearts, and people need to be seen for who they really are as a person, and not only through what they have become, the role that they have, kind of adopted in their professional lives.
Thank you. It's really interesting to hear some practical examples of people whose idea has had real impact. You have a global network, which is, a community of fellows, and the EPALE community is also a community. Looking at it from that point of view, how a community enriches each other's experience, shares ideas, and raises everyone's competence and energy. Looking at the Ashoka network, what sort of lessons again or advice would you offer to EPALE when you, 10 years old and looking forward to the next 10 years, what would you draw from that, the way that individual fellows, even though they work in different places and on different topics with different communities, how is it that they can create something together?
I mean, this is one of the most difficult questions, of course. I think that for us, the learnings were that, the connection and the convening, what you do here, is really key for people to feel that they are part of a community and an important part of it. But that's not enough, of course. We could drink a glass of wine and we might, connect very well, but still we will not change the world necessarily. Maybe we would, but what we try to do is really bring together people who are, passionate about a certain topic and bring them to work together. And work on certain societal problems. We have, big topics at Ashoka where, we have, for example, the topic of new longevity or planet and climate, and, with our people working on these topics. And we bring together not only the fellows, not only the social entrepreneurs, because what I said at the beginning, you need an ecosystem. Everyone can become part of change. You do not have to have the role of the leader of this change necessarily. You can also fund the change, and you can support with your knowledge, and so there are many roles that you can have in supporting this change. So the question is, how do I bring the right people together to work on certain, societal innovations that I want to bring forward? Yeah.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about the importance of a shift in people's attitudes and minds, because again, that's something that's central to the EPALE community. We talked yesterday about some of the challenges about getting people motivated to learn, because their experience of learning environments, formal learning environments, may have been painful or a failure, or they didn't fit in, or they didn't get what they needed to it. People coming into learning, maybe they've lost their job and they need to be retrained, or they are sort of finding their way back to learning after having had an experience of prison or addiction or homelessness. So you've got a lot of people who, it's as much about the process of learning as it is building a new identity for themselves and seeing learning on that way. So we touched on that a little bit yesterday, and I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, because you said that it's so important to change the mind shift. How do you work on that?
Through showing different solutions, or better solutions. So when you have a conflict, you can go frontal and try to solve the conflict like that. But, we all know that you cannot solve conflicts in general. But what you can do is take a step back and show a different way. Yeah. And I think when you are a good trainer, you ignite the passion or the curiosity of people. And also what I see in the visionary program in general, the people are so blown away by the optimism. Most people come from an environment that is quite restrictive and difficult, and work relationships might be difficult and all of that. But there is a world out there, and I see that every day, where change is possible, and where people, even though it's hard, they make better change possible. So, for example, the Ashoka Fellows, we work with 76% of them change national legislation in the field they're working in their countries. So you can imagine how often they run against walls, but they do not give up. And already to be exposed to these possibilities frees energy and unleashes this potential and this curiosity, and in many people that is really breathtaking, I must say. So I think in everyone there is this potential somewhere. And the question is, how can you support them to really unleash it? I think theory is part of it, but more, to be able to guide and to guide people on an emotional level, that really makes a difference.
Thank you, Raffaella. Let me now open the floor to contributions, questions, suggestions. What's been your experience? Have you seen the way that some of the courses, the programs, and the opportunities that you offer could lead to some of the transformational change? People get empowered to then change legislation, go and fight things, set things up. we had this lovely message stories of two of of your concrete examples, and maybe you'll share some more of people who took one situation, like having a visual disability, and then turning it into a superpower by showing other people what it's like just for a short time to experience that and open people's ideas. And the story of the Belgian fellow who created street schools by meeting the children where they were and then offering education for them. So those are really interesting examples. Sarah, let me come to you and see how our online communities are responding to what they've heard. Do we have any comments or inputs?
Yeah, absolutely. As it usually happens when we have different angles speaking to our community responds. I mean, they are really inspired by these different ways of also seeing education, learning. And we have, I chose a couple of questions for you. So we have one, which is specifically on your experience as working at Ashoka, which says, in your work with change makers, what makes the difference between people who have a strong vision and those who manage to turn vision into real change? So vision and change and differences and how they overlap. We also have another one. I don't know if you want to hear that before or...
To understand the first one. So the difference between a change maker and somebody who manages change?
Yes, someone who has, as I understand, it's someone who has vision, and someone who can make this vision
to bring it to the ground.
Bring it to change. Yeah, I can share the other one, so that then maybe you, which is from Portugal, from colleagues from Portugal, who also are bringing up one of the challenges we have with adults and educating adults. So I often hear it said, and we feel that despite how much we try to be positive and persevere in trying to change, the world is against us. And the obstacles are many. Many adults think this way and give up on studying, for example, even when we want to. And what advice can you give? I think you already gave some ideas before, but yeah, just these two inputs from the community, and I leave them to you.
Yeah, I mean, the first question is of course a difficult one. The way I understand it is what I've seen with many of these visionaries that we're working with on a daily basis. They have very bold ideas. They are very, very passionate. Like, for example, Andreas Heinecke, who said for him, social entrepreneurship is to turn pain into love. So this is really who he is, yeah? At the same time, he is not the best manager, yeah? So you cannot do it alone. And the people who bring a vision to the ground are as important as the visionary itself, in my experience. So try to form a team of like-minded people who want to achieve a certain goal, but then look at who is more on the practical side, who is a good manager or whatnot, and so to support these visionaries as well, because otherwise they burn out. We know that. We have come up actually with a study a few years back. It's called the Wellbeing Program, led by a Canadian Ashoka fellow based in Paris. Also, this is online, by the way. And many of these visionaries, they burn out because they do not have enough support systems. So I would say this is really critical to build a team. And to do it together, yeah. And when it comes to the second question from Portugal, I think you need to build, kind of get to the heart of the people by showing that there is a different world out there, and and take them on a transformational journey somehow, not finger pointing at the issues that they might be struggling with, which all of us are struggling with, but in the courses, the trainings, or the work you're doing with these adults is really to build like a learning bubble, I would say, where suddenly things are possible. They can show sides of their personality, their passion, whatnot, that they might have lost in the course of their lives.
Thank you. I mean, this is an element we spoke about yesterday and in previous conferences, the importance of motivation, understanding the sort of intrinsic motivation that brings people to learning. And as I already said, sometimes it's quite painful. The motivation that brings people there, they're there because they may not have a choice to be there, as well as those who seize on it because this is something they've never had a chance to have before. So for the people here who are developing programs or you're developing training materials, understanding that motivation and being able to offer support and help people when things get tough, when they feel that the world is against them and they've got to fight many battles. I'm sure that's something that you've built into your support program for the social entrepreneurs, the visionaries, because change is not a linear process. Not like you say, okay, I need to do X, Y, Z, you press a button and it's done. There will be, you take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, there will be setbacks. So how do you, in your program, maintain that support, to give them not just the energy to start, but to keep going when things get tough?
I mean, I think a very important element are the tools that we've developed and that we share with them. So it's not, I think that is really, kind of the basis of all support that we can give them. So I want to stress that as well, because otherwise you are, starting from fresh again. But also to be part of a community is so important. And many of these Ashoka fellows and also other people in our community, it's not only about the fellows, but there are a lot of supporters and whatnot. They say it's for the first time that they have an identity as a person, that they can really talk to other people about the issues that they have and share them. And so, because it's very lonely to be a change maker. Yeah. And I think that this aspects really to have peers is also is a real game changer. You wouldn't believe how much. Yeah. So I think.
Thank you. The importance of creating a peer community and the importance of being seen and heard and validated in your vision, even when things get tough, I think is really helpful. Do we have any other contributions or comments that you'd like to share, some experiences that you might recognize in this? Because if not, I'll ask Raffaele to maybe think of 1 or 2 other concrete examples. You can tell us about some of your individual fellows where you can see how they, as the result of their journey, they made some changes.
No, but please ask questions as well, because I know it can be very confusing to learn about Ashoka. So I'm sure there are questions.
Yes, if you just wait, the microphone's coming. If you just stand up so the camera can see you.
Yeah. Hi. Rather than a question, it's just an example of a migrant student who came to my school because he was a farmer in Libya. Then he was a farmer in Libya. But then, eventually he came up in Italy because he was there. He had a very bad experience. He started to come to school. He learned Italian, and now he has completely changed his life. I brought him to Strasbourg for a mobility about sustainability, and now he's a volunteer in many NGOs who takes care of the environment. But above all, he founded an NGO in Benin, so he got back to his country. So he works in Italy, but 2 months a year he goes back to Benin. He founded his own NGO, and now he takes care of building schools in Benin. So I think that for a person who was not at school for many years, coming back to education and training, and especially going on an Erasmus mobility really inspired him. And after that, he decided to, to be a change maker. So he became an agent of change into society.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful example of what can happen now, the beauty of it. And also this is mindset shift in a way, how do we see migrants? What potential do migrants have? We have a whole program that's called Hello World, where we are working with migrant communities to, kind of unleash this potential of these people and to become part of society much more, but also for the other side, so to speak, to change the position on how we want to live together as well. But what you say is a very important aspect for us, because when we were working with the Ashoka Fellows, at a certain moment we realized that most of them, and this is about I think 70% of them, had started their changemaker journey already in their teens. So we asked ourselves, well, how can this be? Wow, what is happening there? Do you have a changemaker gene, or is this something that you simply have as a personality trait, or what is there? And then we started, digging more into that, and we realized that these people have certain skills. One of them is empathy, for example, which is a very important skill. But also, the power of connecting people and all of that. And that, in fact, you can learn that. You can learn these skills, and they are not, you're not born with it. And if you can learn them, why don't we as a society create a world where young people can really unleash their potential as change makers? Because we see young people as, the group of people, they need to go to school and they need to have good grades, and the parents expect them to do this and that. But there is no environment where young people are really supported in implementing their ideas for a better world. And this already, the fact that we build a society where this is not valued, and these young people are not valued and supported in unleashing their potential for society, is very, very worrying. I find very worrying, because these are the ones who will take over. And so this is the next big thing of Ashoka, is to contribute to changing these mindsets towards young people.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Raffaella, for coming to be with us today. And as you mentioned, you've got lots of interesting links and resources that we will be sharing on the EPALE community, so you can find out a little bit more. And it's great, as you said, they're all freely available. There's lots of different tools that can be used that hopefully you can find elements that could be built into the training materials that you provide for your community, because it's tried and tested, and they've been used by people who've gone on to have huge impact. So they are the tools that help people to empower them along the journey.
And if you want to think of on a bigger scale, you can also reach out to me directly, and I might be able to connect you with people who might build something together with you, that makes, your course, your platform, whatever it is, maybe more system changing and with greater societal impact. Yeah.
Excellent. So can we say a warm thank you to Raffaella for coming today?
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you. So I promised earlier that we would give you a little bit of information about some of the workshops that took place yesterday. So I'm going to now just show you 4 infographics, and there will be a narrative report from these workshops that will be made available to you later, but we just wanted to show you some images to see what you did. So we're going to start with the first one on basic skills. That was a key topic that we talked about yesterday. And here you can see We just had the word empathy spoken about, and there we saw that you need to recognize the different formats of that. Yes, please feel free. You can take a photo of this. These images will be on the EPALE website, part of the tools from the conference. So really important, are we asking the right questions? Have we ensured that the learning environment supports and facilitates people, that it isn't a place where there are barriers? Because if people have come in for basic skills, it's often that they've experienced barriers in the past, that previous traditional formal learning environments may have failed them. So if we're going to build the competencies in our learners, we need to make sure that we understand how different people learn. That might be some of the neurodiversity we just spoke about. It might be, making sure that it isn't just challenges, that you've got fun, that you look at people's motivation. So there you've got a really interesting set of tools looking at the idea of basic skills, the foundation of lifelong learning. So now let's move to the second workshop, which is on a second one also on basic skills, and that moves in a little bit more detail. And here we're looking at the process of transformation. So let's look at the next infographic, please, which is on the second basic skills workshop. This is it, great. So in this one, we were looking at the understanding it's about helping people to succeed, not just professionally, personally, in their everyday life. We need to look at how to contextualize learning opportunities. Where and when is it possible? How is it meaningful for individuals? And there's the invitation to think non-conventionally about learning, where it is and how it takes place, what it looks like and how we measure success, the metrics of it, to understand that it will look different for each person who comes into the system. I think this is an invitation that providers should make the learning easier, more meaningful and tailored for the individuals. And we had the story from the Ashoka fellow who was working with street kids in South America. You meet them where they are. Understand why they are where they are. Don't try and fix that, acknowledge it, but then try to provide empowerment skills, connecting at the human level. So I think that's the key in this workshop. The next workshop looked at the future of skills. And again, that was a theme yesterday in our conversation. So here's was how do you orient your skills development for the future, particularly challenging when nobody can predict the future. We don't have a crystal ball. And I know we're going to talk about that in a little bit in our panel, but here were some ideas, is to bring the educators, the institutions, the learners together so they can keep pace together in developing what they're doing and understanding, again, looking at the individual learner. What are their emotional, social needs? How can we use core skills like critical thinking to promote their understanding? And there we've got no anxiety for technology. And that's often because we feel that technology is the one that drives the change. We've got to keep up, otherwise we'll be irrelevant, redundant. There'll be no space for us and we won't be able to engage with the world. And I don't know if you remember, I think it was last year, we had a great speaker who helped us gave us some tools to slow down our understanding of time. So we feel that less time pressure to be able to appreciate how to move forward. So as always, the EPALE Community Conferences stay with me in my mind because we have great ideas. So look back at what we discussed in previous years. So there we've got this sort of pathway, multicultural and empathic, that's flexible and adaptable and involves an active listening. It's a two-way process. So thank you for that. And the fourth workshop looked at AI. And I know we've got a workshop this afternoon with our Belgian colleagues. So if you want to deepen your understanding, that's the time to do it. But here we looked at, the question, should organizations be promoting AI? There are ethical issues. There are environmental issues. There are deep, societal issues. Is this something that as sort of in the learning community, we should be encouraging or just acknowledging that happens? Should we try to accelerate it? There was a message there about, we must make sure that the ambassadors, the institutions, at least can operate in this environment, that they've got some understanding on it and the tools. Not necessarily they have to use it, but they need to appreciate them and understand them. So there's some of the issues, and clearly there's a lack of AI training. See, let's just have a quick show of hands. How many of you in your organizations and institutions have had some training on AI? Okay, that's about a third of the audience. So there's clearly some way to go before it's fully rolled out. Very basic. So even if there was training, it was, this is what AI is, but it isn't really how does it work. So if you can, do come to the workshop this afternoon by our Belgian colleagues, because clearly that's an area of gap. So thank you for the visual facilitators who made these lovely images. There will be more to be shared, and it's part of the package of materials, together with a narrative report about each of those workshops. So you'll be able to take them away and use them in your own work. So thank you again. I promised you do the work, and that's part of how this community conference works. Now we're going to move to the next topic, and I'm delighted to be able to introduce Monica Kepper-Holmberg, who's the head of unit for schools and multilingualism at the DG EAC at the European Commission, and she's going to give us a little bit of early insight. We don't have a crystal ball, but you are giving us a peek through the door at what's coming for the future for Erasmus and adult learning. So please, the podium is there, and you have a clicker that will allow you to move things forward.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and good morning. Very warm welcome also from my side. You said in the introduction, yes, I'm head of the schools and multilingualism unit, but we are also responsible for the part of the program that deals with adult learning. And I'm very happy actually today to see some old friends, old faces, and coming still from the time when the program was called Grundtvig in adult education. So it's nice that I think some of you still remember those days as well. So in the next about 20 minutes, as you said, not a crystal ball, but I would like to give a bit of an insight into where we are with the preparation of the next generation program. And I'm going to use some slides to make it also a bit, yes, I'm not doing the right way. It's not.
If it doesn't work, just say next. But it should work.
Yes, perhaps I just tell the colleagues to move if they can do it, because it seems, okay, or perhaps I manage. Okay, so perhaps before just going to the future, I just wanted to look a bit back to the past, the Erasmus Plus program, and what we have seen and achieved so far. So it's quite clear that the program is one of the most successful stories, one of the success stories when we think about the EU. When you ask citizens, when we have citizen panel discussions and they have to identify some important achievements, they often mention the single market, the freedom of movement, but the Erasmus program always comes also in top 3. Then when we look at a bit our track record, in 2027, we will celebrate 40 years of Erasmus. So we have a 28 years track record behind us on personal and professional growth, and more than 15 million participants in the program of all ages and all backgrounds. But we also know from the participants, it has contributed to all those who participated in the different activities to improve their skills, competencies, career opportunities. This is what participants, 4 out of 5, tell us when we ask these questions. And something that is very important for us, also for the future of the program, and you will hear from me several times these 2 keywords, inclusion and diversity. This is a very strong priority for the program to reach also those who would typically not participate in European projects. I went back, sorry. Okay, so just a bit about the next program for the 2028-2024. The new Erasmus Plus regulation is built on the clear DNA for the Erasmus Plus program. We also call it the 2 legs of the program, which is about skills development and democratic participation. So these are the 2 main focuses, priority areas where very clearly adult education is not just relevant, but it's also very central. For us, the other that I said already before, the most defining ambition of the new program is keeping its inclusiveness and even enhancing its inclusiveness. When you hear our new not you anymore, our Executive Vice President, Roxana Minzato, talking about the program, she always highlights this ambition that everyone has to have at least one Erasmus Plus experience during their lifetime. So we have to make sure that everybody experiences the program, either as a school pupil, as a vet learner, as a volunteer, as a student, or as an adult, for example, when it comes to upskilling and reskilling. For the new program, and this you will see also in the next slide, we are listening to the stakeholders. So our ambition is very much to keep the stability, build on what works, keep the emphasis on learning mobility, support for cooperation project, but also when it comes to the administration of the program, focus on simplification. The proposal for the next program was presented in July, so earlier this year, but of course it built on long preparation. So we have been preparing the program the past 2 years, and these are the different elements that contributed to this preparation. So you can see we worked very much on evaluating interim evaluations of the current program, but also the European Solidarity Corps. Part of any new program proposal that we do, an impact assessment. We had a series of stakeholder consultations, open public consultations, several stakeholder events, working groups, discussions also with our national agencies. What is happening now, and this is part of also the negotiations whenever we propose a new program, we have so-called interinstitutional negotiations with the European Parliament, with the Council, with the Member States, and these negotiations are actually just right now going on with the Member States in the Education Committee. So perhaps just coming to a bit the simplification and the structure of the program. So what we have now in the 2020-2027 program, we have 3 chapters. We have a separate chapter for education and training. We have a chapter for youth, for sport, and we have what we call 3 key actions. But then we also have the Jean Monnet program, and this seems to be a quite complicated structure. And I don't know what, but here key action 1, key action 2, those who are insiders, they know what it is, but it's very difficult actually to communicate it also to the outside. So we try to be in the new program proposal a bit more focused and saying that now we are focusing 2 pillars that offer the learners the menu of opportunities. And these are the 2 main pillars of the program, the learning opportunities for all. These are basically all the mobility activities, learning mobility, volunteering. And then we have the capacity building, which includes the different cooperation projects among organizations and institutions, but also the support to policy development. So this new structure aims to offer a simplified but still unified menu to the applicants. And now I'm coming already to adult education, to adult learning, just to confirm the new definition that has been included in the text of the regulation. So we are defining adult learners, as you see on the screen, a person who has left or finished initial education and training and engages in formal, non-formal, or informal learning, including the NEET, which stands for not in education, employment, or training. And we have a definition also included in the text of the regulation about what adult learning is, which is defined as any form of formal, non-formal, or informal learning for adults. It has this double focus for the opportunities. Again, what you will hear from me again and again repeated, the part with skills development, upskilling and reskilling for competitiveness, but also enhancing social cohesion, active participation in society, active citizenship, democracy. So these changes formally also acknowledge the dual purpose, the dual role of adult education. So yes, it is also about employability, but it's not only about employability, it's also about civic engagement, social inclusion, democratic life. So again, I saw that you discussed basic skills also, and it was really inspiring to see the outcome of the different workshop discussions yesterday. So yes, the focus is on basic skills, on social skills, and also finding the balance between employability, but also the social inclusion aspects. So a bit now about where we stand with the budget. Comparing to the budget that we have available for in the current period, the budget is 40.82 billion. This is again the Commission proposal. This is 50% more than what we have in the current 7-year period. What is also different compared to what we have, at least in the Commission's proposal, no budget has been earmarked per field. So there is no ring fencing of the different amounts per sector. And when we say per management mode, it means it's not, there is no ring fencing about which are the actions that are centralized, managed here in Brussels, and which are the ones that are decentralized, managed by our national agencies in the member states. What would be actually very important that the resources, how they are allocated. When we talk about shared management, this means the big cohesion fund policies. So member states will be able to inject more money into the program coming from other sources, like from the shared management funds. And there is a possibility, the program proposal offers the possibility to have more synergies with other support, other EU supporting instruments like the ESF Plus, or the future national and regional partnership plans. But we also hope to have more as a simplification that the actions that we support can also receive funding from different programs. But if they do that, there is only single set of rules that would apply. This slide I will just skip because it's a bit more for the technicalities of the program. I wanted to rather come a bit more to the priorities for the adult education sector. You will hear still today more about the Union of Skills and the action plan on basic skills. So these are the main policy priorities that are guiding our work at the moment, our policy work, and this is what the program will also support, European Pillar of Social Rights and other topic. And what is currently being discussed also by the member states in the Education Committee is the European Education Area, the second phase of its implementation. I think also my colleague Anne will say a bit more about the Union of Skills later. I just wanted to show on these slides what is in the Union of Skills communication that was adopted on the 5th of March, what are the main pillars of that framework, and just to highlight that all of these parts have a very clear link to adult education. It's about, but it's about building skills, it's about build skills for quality lives and jobs. Here the basic skills of adults come in very strongly. The second part, upskilling and reskilling for the twin transition. Again, adults come in very strongly, circulating skills across the EU for competitiveness, again, and when it comes to the attract and develop and retain talent. Again, just wanted to highlight that adult education plays a role in all these 4 stages, from the basic skills development, basic skills literacy, but also, for example, to the mobility of workers. This is why it has many angles. It addresses the skills shortages and the gaps in Europe. It's also transformation speed gap and also the fragmented governance and skills intelligence are addressed in the document. When we come a bit more specific also to the different policies that are mentioned in the Union of Skills communication, for the specific pillar on building skills for lifelong learning, we have already proposed an action plan on basic skills, which includes very clearly the basic skills development also of adults, the STEM education strategic plan, and what is coming next year, 2026, will be the so-called basic skills support scheme, although that will be with a strong focus on schools and the EU teachers and trainers agenda. When it comes to the upskilling part, and this is what I believe my colleague will say a bit more about, you see all those activities that have direct relevance for the upskilling and reskilling of adults, also to ensure future-oriented skills. I think you even talk about and had presentations for the Pact for Skills, support to the continued implementation of the individual learning account. The pilot already is happening soon on the skills guarantee, rolling out of targeted EU skills academies, and another initiative, I believe, coming also next year will be the skills portability. So again, a lot of the policy ideas that can be afterwards supported by the program. From the multiple conversations we had, I said that we had a lot of conversations also with, of course, with the adult education sector at all different levels, how we should shape also the program for the future. And here we try to summarize the main challenges and what are those possible responses to these challenges. So firstly, it's still very much about what we see about the capacity and the application quality when it comes to the program and program applications. What we hear also for the actions that are managed by our colleagues in the national agencies is that it's still very difficult for small organizations to apply, to participate in the program, because the whole application process is very complex. It's too difficult to write, for example, an application. So for this, we can use targeted capacity building and also dedicated support from our national agencies, just to ensure that also those who are the least likely to participate in the program are not stopped just because of their own administrative capacity. Inclusiveness, motivation, I mentioned several times, the issue of inclusiveness and adult learner motivation is really a key priority. It often means we have to reach those who are the hardest to reach. And here the message also that we get from all our consultations is very clear. Inclusion must be mandatory. So it should not be just one of the quality criteria. We have to make sure that this is a mandatory part of all projects. And thirdly, I mentioned a lot simplification. The administrative burden remains a significant barrier, especially for small organizations to participate. And here we are committed to dramatic simplification. I know we said that we actually talk a lot about simplifications. We have to do it. We have to have shorter reports, harmonized templates, and also more simplified IT tools. And this is what we are working on at the moment already. When it comes also to flexibility, we must also ensure greater flexibility in the project plan adjustment communication. We heard the message and we are very clearly addressing that. What is also we are looking at, of course, was in the current program, we have a low success rate for the KA2 project. These are the cooperation projects. So this is something that we definitely have to address, and we will address with better capacity building in the next program. So perhaps just to summarize a bit the priorities when we are going forward, I said it before, but thought it could be useful to have it again, recapping it towards the end of my talk. Skills development, including basic skills and democratic participation, the two pillars, two legs of the new program. Very strong alignment, strategic alignment with the EU policy priorities, which are the Union of Skills, with all its elements already presented in March and coming in the next 2-3 years, and also the second phase of the European education area implementation, stronger synergies with other programs and other instruments, and again, the very important priority, the inclusion, how to reach those who are hardest to reach, those who are coming from a disadvantaged background, those who are long-term unemployed, for example. And I think one important part that is not here, but perhaps it comes in, that I wanted to say is that we have to celebrate. We have to celebrate the success. We have to celebrate the successful project. And if I can finish on this high note, you may know the European Innovative Teaching Award, which we have since 2021. In the Innovative Teaching Award, until now, we focused on schools, on early childhood education and care, on primary, secondary schools, vocational education and training schools, but not on the adult education sector. This is different this year. We have also awarded those innovative teaching practices that have been developed by Erasmus Plus projects in the sector of adult learning. The topic this year was citizenship education, a very important topic, a key topic for the sector. So participation in democratic life, common values, civic engagement. And we were very happy that we could select also and award those successful projects. They are celebrated now and have been some of them in the countries by an event organized at the national agencies. And here in Brussels, we will have another ceremony early December, on the 8th and 9th of December, to celebrate their success. I think this is very important. This recognition also validates the innovative work that is being done in the sector, and a reminder also that the adult education sector is at the forefront, and it comes to strengthening our skills training, but also for the European democracy. And this is what we would like to carry forward also in the new program from 2028. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm very happy for possible questions and comments.
Thank you very much. And I know people will be really interested to receive your PowerPoint afterwards, which will be on the website as part of the community conference materials. And I'm sure you're going to need time to digest the content, particularly the early information about what might be in the next program. But I did want to just take this opportunity to invite our ambassador from Spain, Jesus. If you just stand up, we'll get a microphone to you, because he wanted to just tell you a little bit about what he's doing and how the program that you're talking about makes a big difference to what he does. So Jesus, please go ahead.
Yeah. Good morning to everyone. Good morning, Monica. Thank you for your talk. First of all, I would like to say thank you and congratulations. Thank you to the Spanish National Support Service for inviting me to take part in this magnificent event. Thank you to the Centre Support Service for the magnificent organization of this conference here in Brussels. And congratulations to the whole EPALE community all over Europe on this 10th anniversary. My name is Jesus Canca. I'm a Spanish teacher working in an adult center in Ceuta. I'm also the coordinator of the Erasmus Plus project in my school and a Spanish EPALE ambassador in my town. I'm from Ceuta, a beautiful small Spanish town located in the north coast of Africa. So, because of the geographical situation, it is considered the African gate to the European continent. And by the way, talking about Europe, let me know I'm very concerned about the relation and synergies between Erasmus Plus program and the EPALE platform. In my humble opinion, both Erasmus and EPALE could be regarded as toolboxes that allowed us to improve the process of internationalization in our educative institutions. Without any doubt, I think that EPALE is a great place to find information, support, and inspiration. Information about the past by means of good educative practices, support at the present time through educative resources, and inspiration for the future to take part in future European Erasmus Plus projects. As we all know, for the period 2021 to 2027, in which we are immersed, the Erasmus Plus program places particular emphasis on social inclusion, the ecological and digital transitions, and the promotion of young people's participation in democratic life. My comment, or my suggestion, or my wish is, please do not forget to continue putting the emphasis on these same priorities in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for the comment, and thank you also for saying, I should have said myself, this is a season of birthdays this year. We are celebrating 10 years. For EPALE, we have also the 25 years for eTwinning, and we will soon have the program also 40 years. So I think it's a great reminder that this the development of these platforms and the activities, and we could not do this without you, without the community. It's you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would you like to take a seat? And of course, keep an eye on the EPALE platform in the coming months as we get a little bit more detail about the future program and priorities. So this was just a first glimpse into how the Commission is proposing as it goes forward. So we're now going to move on to another part of our program, which is the inspiration slot. And in this one, we're going to be talking about the power of data, but also the beauty of data. Now, you remember I just gave you a little bit of insight into the workshops yesterday, and I showed you these very simple but great infographics, which was a way for your mind to categorize and to understand the context of the issues that we talked about. So now I'm delighted to introduce you an award-winning data visualization designer called Federica Fragapani from Italy. And she is going to show us a little bit of the work that she does and explain to us how we can make data beautiful. So she's joining us online. Hello and welcome, Federica. Is our technology working? Hey,
Hello.
There you are. Hello.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you and we can see you. So
Great.
I think, first of all, you are an information designer. Start off by telling us, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, let me just share my screen, because for me, showing and telling about my job are very important aspects to be considered together. Can you see my screen?
Yes, it's coming up now.
Great.
Yes.
Okay. So this is a visual representation of what I do. I transform, I visual represents data, information, contents, numerical data, but not only numerical ones, into visual elements. And the aim is always communicating through different ways, through different languages. I'm going to show you different examples, and inviting people and looking at them. But this is a very quick, short explanation of what I do. I transform contents into visual elements. I translate them.
So then how do you start a visualization? Because we're swimming in a sea of data and it's all very much. So what's your starting point?
So it really depends, because I work on commissions. I'm a freelancer, I'm an independent designer, but I also work on side projects that starts from a topic I feel the urgency to talk about and to mention. So the first thing are the contents, are the data, of course. And when potential clients ask me to visualize the data, sometimes they already have very clear in mind the message they want to convey, the contents they have. Sometimes we work together on that. Sometimes I find the data, and there are a lot of official, reliable sources that can provide many contents, many data sets, insights also. And this is an important part of my job, working with the contents, working with the data themselves. And then there is this part of definition of a visual language, of visual alphabets I can use to translate such data. And to give you two quick examples of the range of complexity, but also of experimentation that can characterize my project, can be very broad. And this is according to another essential point, so the user context and the needs this project needs to answer to. So for instance, those are some projects I've been doing for the publication of for the European Union, for the UA data stories. And in that case, they asked me to create some visuals for some data stories that the publication office of the European Union periodically publishes. And in this case, the idea is to create graphics that are more similar to the classical ones, to the classical graphics you think when you think about data visualization. And in this case, the visual languages that I use are minimal, are very geometrical. There is always an effort on the aesthetics, but the language is a more, the one that is commonly associated with data visualization. But I also work when the usage context requires it, with different shapes, with soft organic shapes, also sometimes unconventional ones. And this is something that I do when it makes sense doing it. Also to recall what is behind the data, the living presence behind the data, the lives behind the data, the human lives, but not only, the ecosystems that sometimes the data talk about. And to show another example, very different from the ones for the publication office of the EU. This is a project that I've been working on some years ago about the proportional number of environmental defender deaths in Brazil. It was to accompany an investigative piece by Yesenia Funes, an investigative journalist from the online magazine Atmos. And she asked me to use my organic shapes and an organic and soft look and feel to accompany a brilliant investigative piece, because she wanted to convey also through aesthetics this sense of presence she was mentioning and she was researching in her work.
Great, thank you. So, I mean, it's really striking, the sort of colors and the shapes that you use. But let me start by asking you, how do you choose which data sets to use? Because, of course, if you want to tell a story, it really does depend on where you get your data and what type of data there is. And there's a lot of, false data and false stuff that's put out. So when you choose your data set, how do you go about it?
So first of all, there are some sources that we know are reliable and official from the European Union, Eurostat, ISTAT in Italy, World Bank. There are some collectors of sources. A collector of sources I really love is Our World in Data. And it's great because not only it does provide different data sets grouped into macro categories, but it also provide insights, create comparisons between different data sets. They create graphics, maps, but something that I use to understand if the data is reliable enough, maybe if I don't know the source very well, is I try to see who is using it. What are the other media outlets that are using this data, how they're using it. It's very important having in mind that there is a lot of misinformation, and so knowing the context also in which the data have been collected. So it's definitely something that I need to pay a lot of attention to. And I also want to show you another example, a little bit more in detail this time, to also show that I don't have like a minimum amount of data or a maximum amount of data I can work with, because it really depends on the message we want to convey and on the context in which these data are visualized. So, and also this helps me to talk a little bit more about the aesthetics of my pieces and how I like to use aesthetics to invite people to look at the information I'm working on. So my latest project is Shapes of Inequalities, and it's an installation in Triennale. It's part of Triennale Milano, the Design Museum International Exhibition. And the International Exhibition of Triennale, the Design Museum in Milan, it's all about inequalities. And it's a huge exhibition full of different sub-exhibitions, all about the topic of inequalities. And they asked me to create an introductory piece that is this room that is called Shapes of Inequalities, in which I explore different shapes of inequality through the lenses of gender inequality, life expectancy, wealth, climate change. So there are many, many lenses from which to observe the topic. And there is a centerpiece in the installation that is this sculpture that is created starting from one of my shapes. And I wanted to show you a few examples because I work both with complex data, but also with very simple ones. Those are some pictures from the space, from the exhibition that it's currently in Milan. And because there isn't necessarily a set amount of numbers of quantities I can visualize. So for instance, the first piece of the exhibition, of the installation, is about inequality and wealth. And in this case, being the first piece, we wanted to start with very simple information and very simple number. And this is the information. The richest 0.001% of the population, around 50,000 people, possesses around 6.4% of global wealth, while more than 2 billion adults owns just 2% of global wealth. So those are the data, very simple, to just 4 numbers, percentages, and number of people owning such percentages. And I wanted to represent it in a very straightforward way. So also to guide a little bit through the process of designing a visualization. And disclaimer, being in a museum, in a design and art museum, in this case, the experimentation part and the aesthetic were particularly relevant throughout the design process. So the first thing I wanted to represent were these two percentages of global wealth, 6.4 on one side and 2% on the other side. And then I wanted to represent the number of people owning such two percentages in a very simple and straightforward way. One dot represented 10,000 people. It would have been great to have one dot for one people, but it would have been definitely overwhelming considering the number of people we were talking about. And this is what I did. So I just visualized these very simple yet incredibly striking numbers through a visual alphabet that can be very simple, yet hopefully can engage people and can invite them looking at the information. And so this is one of the pieces of the exhibition. Another one that I would like to quickly guide you through is about life expectancy. There was throughout the exhibition, there is a beautiful part about how inequalities affect life expectancy too, in different ways. And so they asked me to also talk about this topic. And also in this case, the data were relatively simple. So I selected the countries with highest and lowest high percentages on the left part. And on the right part, I visualized the data on a very interesting study showing how there are such huge gaps in life expectancies, also within the same cities. The study was about American cities. So different areas of New York, people from different areas of New York, in New York, for instance, have very, very different life expectancies. And in this case, thinking about, again, the topic and thinking about the people behind the topic that I'm talking about, I wanted to provide, again, a soft and organic shapes to talk about this data. And also in this case, the visual rule is very straightforward. I create this kind of leaf or feather, depending on, it's really depending on, I didn't want to create necessarily a set shape. And the number of lines that you can see are the years of life expectancy. So again, the rule is pretty simple. And it's basically an histogram, but with a different way of treating the contents, the visual contents. And those are the data. And you can see I visualize. So it's basically another version of a classical histogram. And the height are accurate. So if you compare it with a basic histogram, the length of these shapes are definitely precise and accurate ones. And you can see in the left, there is a comparison between different countries, while on the right part, there is a comparison between different cities. And the last one that I want to show you very quickly is about the gender pay gap. There is another topic. And also in this case, the data were simple. So how much are the earnings of women if compared with the ones of men? If we take in consideration people who are the different level of study, of education. And so, for instance, in the upper part, we have people with an education level below upper secondary level. And on the last part, we have people with doctoral degree, master's degree, bachelor's degree. And also in this case, the shape can be organic and complex and intricate, but the way in which it works is very simple. The length of the shapes breaks at the point in which the women are earning less than men. To show this gap and to show this broken part of the overall long shape. So this was just to give you a few insights of the process and on the way in which I also decide to use visual languages and also to select the data to talk about the topic that I'd like to communicate, because again, this is my main goal and purpose.
Thank you. I mean, I think each of these examples is really very beautiful, and we will make sure in the materials that we provide afterwards, you'll be able to see the direct website of Frederica's work. And she's also very kindly collated a group of resources on how to get started in using visual tools, how to develop some of this. So hopefully we will build everyone's skills here in how to do that. But let me now ask you, how you've mentioned a little bit how you approach a visualization, but I'm curious, what emotion do you hope people will feel when they see this? Because when you talk about, the death of human rights defenders, or you talk about gender pay gap, these are kind of issues that you want to see some change. So you are triggering an emotional response when you create these images. So what do you want people to feel? And then how do you hope they will use that information?
So thanks for the question. So first of all, I'd like people maybe to discover something new, because some of these data are very simple, some of these data can be taken for granted, but there are cases in which people are actually discovering something new through some of my visualizations, and not only my visualizations, of course. And so this sense of discovery is something that is very important to me. And then I have to say, many of these works really comes from my frustration and my anger. So and dealing them with such delicate visual elements and hopefully with beauty is my way to deal with these topics. And so I just hope that people can not necessarily to feel my angry as I feel while I design it, but discover something that maybe they weren't aware of, or use these projects to talk about. This is something that I really love, and it's something that happened during the years. Use these projects and share these projects to talk about topics that are important to them. I want to show you one last example that, again, it's also to show you the potential of this tool to deal with very different data sets and with different purposes. So this is a project that I've been working on in 2020, April 2020, and so during the pandemic, the start of the pandemic, and I was contacted by ODI, the think tank ODI, and they especially Marta Foresti from ODI, director of ODI Europe, she was collecting these stories. She was creating this tracker. And this is a tracker of stories of migrants contributing to the COVID-19 emergency, migrants, essential workers, contributing to the pandemic and to the emergency. And they were creating, it's a very, very long tracker that you can find online. It's a very long data set. Each row is a story of contribution, and they were categorizing them through continents, macro regions, sectors, countries, because they really wanted to spread these stories of contribution and of governments recognizing such essential contribution. But this tracker wasn't enough for them, because they periodically updated it, but people weren't looking at it necessarily so much. And so they contacted me because they wanted to bring it to life. And what we did was creating a website that is still online, and it's called Key Workers. I've worked on it in collaboration with Alex Piacentini. He's a designer and developer. So when I work on interactive projects, I collaborate with other people who are very brilliant. And also his credits are in the website in case you might want to look at his projects too. And in this case, we grouped all these stories by macro region. As you can see, one tree is one macro region. And there are all these branches that represent sectors and countries. And the fruits, the red dots are single stories of contribution. And in this case, the sense wasn't to provide insights. So in Europe, there are thought stories. No, because those stories were collected by people. So necessarily there wasn't a methodological reason to try to prove a point of, okay, let's compare how many stories there are in these countries or in the other country. No, because there were just stories that people were collecting. We just wanted to create a space in which people could lose themselves a little bit, click on the fruits and read the stories and discover them. And so this is one of the ways in which I really love to use data visualization, to take things, stories that maybe we take for granted or that are not visible enough, and to use the visual shapes I work with to give them a shape and to bring them to life and allow people to discover it and go through them.
Thank you. They're really very, very beautiful. And in a way, the EPALE community has something similar. We have the community storybook, where we've tried to capture in the same way some individual personal stories of change and transformation, and they're produced in this really lovely illustrations each year, because I could see how clearly that long Excel file, which contains the huge amount of information that a donor wants to know about what you're doing, and you turned it into something that was approachable and intellectually curious. You want to click on things and see on each of the different fruits, and you turned a dead Excel file into something living and interesting. And I think that's the power of an information designer. So thank you so much for being with us today. It's really been an interesting way to see how you approach things. And just as we heard from Raffaella, from the stories, the Ashoka Fellows, and others that it's triggered by a passion, a desire for change. You said that you come across stories and statistics that you think need to be better understood, or you want to put complexity with a level of context and nuance that help people to understand the picture. But so in the same way, many of the people who work here in EPALE, you're driven by passion for change, commitment, realizing that, learning as a way to change things. So we wanted to bring this as an inspiration story to all of you, to encourage you to think visually. And Frederica, what's your final message? Now, obviously, you are a professional. This is what you do every day, and we won't expect that we can magically turn everyone in this room to someone who works at your level. But what's your key message to people about how they could start to experiment with using information and data in a more visual way?
So I provide, as you were mentioning, I provided some resources and tools which I think are really great, because I always recommend it. There is a great blog that is called Data Wrapper that has a lot of insights about accessibility, something that I didn't mention in the talk, but people with column blindness, how to use text. It's very important to think how to combine text and visuals. There are some books that I very, very always recommend. There are two books in particular. One is called Living in Data, and one is called Data Feminism. And they're not all about visualization. They're in general about data and about the questions we need to ask when we start visualizing one data set. What are the missing parts that a dataset can tell? Who is collecting such data, and what are also the biases behind datasets? Because of course there are, and human presence behind datasets and visualizations is inevitable. I'm not here telling, oh, data are neutral creatures, data are telling the absolute truth. No, for me, it's very important to say data aren't neutral at all, even when there are algorithms behind them. There is always a presence behind them. And for me, it's very important to have the intellectual honesty to declare it and to approach contents and information with this thinking. I've been in this aspect in mind and being considerate of who am I? If I'm talking about migration, I'm clearly a privileged person girl who was born in Italy and who at the moment didn't have to start a journey of migration, and with all the struggles that this is that are involved. So if I'm talking about the topic, I think it's very important for me to remember myself, who am I and why am I talking about this topic, and how am I doing it? Try to be considerate of the people who are actually living the topic that I'm talking about. And then in terms of tools, there are tools that I recommended in the resources. Rograph, rograph.io. It's an excellent free tool, and it's great to explore because you can input data there and experiment the different possible representations you can play with. And so it's a great way to start, in a more practical sense, to start experimenting with visualizations.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Federica, for generously sharing your time and your expertise. And I hope we've triggered curiosity amongst everyone, and we've inspired you to go play with some of those tools that you're sharing that are free. And you've given us, an idea about how we might approach data differently. So thank you very much, Federica.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So now we're going to have a panel that will help us look at forward-looking skills. If yesterday we looked back over the last 10 years of EPALE and we discussed a little bit, how has the concept of adult learning evolved and changed? How has our understanding of the framework and the purpose of it? Today we're going to try and, in this panel, look a little bit forward and try and see what's coming and how we might adapt to that. So I've got 4 members of the panel. 2 are going to be here with us in person. That's Anne Branch, the head of unit of the Union of Skills for the European Commission. Please come and join me. And Andrea La Peña, the deputy director for Lifelong Learning Platform. Please come up and join me. And joining me on the screen virtually, I have Klaus Ehrlich, the coordinator for the Pact for Skills for the Tourism, and Alessia Mesutti, the Technology Enhanced Learning Lead for the International Training Centre. So hello and welcome to Alessia and Klaus, and to Andrea. So this is, we've we said this panel is going to be looking at forward-looking skills, but we're going to try and discuss what does that mean? Who needs it most? Does skill building provide some kind of protective buffer against economic uncertainty? And then who should be responsible for delivering a lot of that? So that's what we're going to cover in our panel together. And let me start with you. I'm going to start by sort of saying, when we say forward-looking skills, what do we really mean? Because aren't all skills meant to be about the future?
Thank you. Well, I think in very simple terms, when we talk about forward-looking skills, we mean the ability to anticipate and prepare for change and not just to react to changes after the event. And I think from a policymaker's perspective, it's about trying to identify early the skills we'll need for the challenges we face. For example, the green and digital transitions is something we're very focused on, and the European Union's competitiveness, and making sure our education and training systems are ready to support people and our businesses and public sectors as well.
Thank you. Andrea, maybe I'd like you to also reflect on this idea. What do we mean by forward-looking?
I actually subscribe to what Anne just said. It's about anticipating, not just reacting. So far, for the crisis that we've had recently, we've been on the reactive side. Climate change in 2019, we got aware that climate change is a serious business, we got aware that climate change is a serious business, and then we reacted towards it with the Green Deal, for instance. In 2020, we got COVID, and we got reactive. We needed resilience. It was difficult to be otherwise than reactive when it came to COVID, but in any case, we were reactive. Now, when it comes to the war in Ukraine, we are reacting because we want more budget for defense. This is a questionable statement, but still, we are on the reactive side. We need to anticipate. We need to be a bit more daring and bold when it comes to see what we need for the future. We don't want to look at a very short-term horizon, say 5 years, 10 years, but we really want to look beyond that. And if there's a message that I wanted to pass with this, is to recall that education in general and skills development, they have a liberating power. They should not content themselves with describing a reality as it is today, but they have a transformative power. The transformative power of education, just like Paulo Freire taught us, for instance, is still something that should be embedded in the way that we learn and the way that we teach, especially when it comes to forward-looking skills.
Thank you. Klaus, can I invite you to come in a little bit now, because we've heard it's about anticipating, it's not just being responsive, but reflecting on what might be needed in the future. You have a background working in tourism, and particularly in rural areas where there are quite specific needs, and these are, in tourism, it's an area where that's changing very rapidly. What for you, when we say who needs it most, forward-looking skills, what's your perspective on that?
Well, the first thing is, I hope you can hear me reasonably well, because I'm in a public space, so I might have some acoustics. I apologize for that. The first point is we don't have the crystal ball. So before COVID, nobody expected this to happen, and it was a surprise. We have these rules from strategic planning 40 years ago. Strong response to weak signals. That's about the only thing we still can do. Listen. So I would rather focus on the speed in which the whole system is able to detect and then implement new skills, trainings, new measures to fill existing gaps. This is a bigger problem because the system is very static. It's very slow generally, especially when we talk about the public structures with formal certifications, formal approvals, etc., until they go through a full approval process. The problem they want to address is already 3 or 4 years old, while we need a reaction immediately. So that's one thing. And the other thing, when we look at the very small providers, which at least in tourism are the vast majority of people, especially when we talk about adult learning, that need a reskilling, upskilling, they need to improve their skills, their knowledge, their competencies. We need a teaching, an implementation format that makes it compatible with staying on the job. For a small micro, even nano as we call them, 2, 3, 4 people enterprise, you cannot send a person on a 50 weeks course away from the normal working rhythm. You need 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week, build up micro credentials, build up the certification if you need them in the end through small steps.
Thank you, Klaus. Alessia, let me bring you in now, because we've had some reflections that forward-looking skills are about anticipation rather than just reacting to what's happening. We've heard from Klaus about the need for them to be relevant and digestible and usable, perhaps in small chunks that can be balanced with work priorities, with caring responsibilities and other life issues. What would you like to add about, forward-looking skills and who needs them most?
Sure, thank you. Can you hear me well as well? I'm gonna just check in. Okay, thank you. No, indeed, thank you for the opportunity to contribute. And of course, I'm subscribing to what has been said by earlier speakers. And what I would like to add as a nuance to forward-looking skills, which has been said as more as a dimension of anticipating and the ability to drive and explore change. I would also add this element of cultivating curiosity and also the confidence to explore change. I come from the world of learning innovation. I come from the world of adult learning. Therefore, I'm not let's say, working in the skills policy sector. So probably my angle is complementary and maybe a different one. But I think I also link to what has been just mentioned by Klaus in terms of also learning system should adapt and should be forward-looking in a sense if we want to make sure that these skills are developed, and therefore probably maybe a dimension of what are these the KPI and the key performance indicators that we look into if we want to develop a new set of skills. So it's not just about completion, it's not just about a participation, it's not just about technology being available, but probably and perhaps how can we keep people curious, how can we keep people motivated, informed, involved in human-centered participatory learning processes. So this is what I would say and add to this initial definition and framing. And who needs the most? I would say everyone, because I think all of us, we are here in this world navigating complexity, navigating uncertainty, and therefore learning, unlearning, and relearning every day. So I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. Yes, I think that's obvious that we will all need to have some kind of forward-looking skills. Let me now open it up to say, would upskilling or reskilling provide some kind of protective buffer against uncertainty, whether it's economic or political or something else? So Andrea, maybe you'd like to respond to that one first.
I think it does. I think it does. To a certain extent, it does provide a certain buffer to economic uncertainties. And it would do even more so if it was done with the learner at the center of the process. They do provide a buffer in the sense that they upskilling and reskilling are there to serve job purposes. So if I attend a training course to update my own skills in a given sector, I will be able to move to a more secure, safer job in the future. But at the same time, this only applies to me and myself on an individual perspective. If we do it with an employment perspective in mind, the buffer that it can provide is up to a certain extent. If we do it with the learners in mind and what learners would actually need a bit beyond the employment perspective, then the buffer would actually be a whole shield. This is a learner-centered approach that we often advocate for, and it's somehow encompassing the skills-first approach that we always hear about and that the Commission is proposing, which is something that we definitely stand behind, and we even would like to extend it a little bit.
Before you pass the microphone, you said this is something that you support. Maybe you could just take a minute, just tell us about your organisation, where you work and what you do, so we understand who the we is, what we do.
Yes, I'm not here on a personal capacity. I'm here as the Deputy Director of the Lifelong Learning Platform, which is the European Civil Society Organization for Education and Training in Europe. We are an umbrella NGO. We represent civil society actors in the field. And we were based in Brussels to try and do advocacy to the lady on my right. Basically, this is our job.
Thank you. I mean, and now I see why you have such a strong, focus on the individual learner. And if we focus on them, we don't provide just a buffer, we provide an absolute shield for the kinds of changes that people will experience in their lives, not just from an employment perspective. I think that's interesting. Alessia, can I invite you to, again, reflect from the International Training Centre? Can you just give us 1 minute about your organization and then your perspective? We've heard from Andrea, it's very much about the individual. We start from them and then build the sort of learning environment around them. What's your starting point?
Sure. Just to complete, I work at the International Training Centre of the International Labour Organization. So this is a United Nations agency which mandate is advancing decent work for all. And the training centre is here to support this mandate through capacity building and learning opportunities that support this mandate. So my angle comes from this perspective. I'm a slow thinker. Can you just, apart from saying what my organization does, what shall I add?
Just, we heard from Andrea about, he said that if you focus on a learner-centered approach, you don't just create a sort of short-term buffer against, better employability, but you actually create a sort of shield that allows people for whatever they're going to experience in life go forward. Now, of course, you're part of the ILO, so labour and employment is going to be a core focus. But would you sort of echo that message?
Sure, I would echo, sorry for rephrasing and reformulating. Yes, I would echo this message, and indeed, in our capacity, we also, our work focuses much on designing learning systems that remain relevant, helping and advising our constituents in doing so, in creating training products, learning products that help not just individuals, but organizations to navigate this evolving learning landscape, and what are the experiences, what are the tools, and what are the methodologies and the spaces that make learning happens equally and according to what are the needs and what are the tools that are available in context. So indeed, it's about not just focusing on individuals, but also in focusing in about how can we improve the capacity of organizations, so that only by then we can create a sort of cascading effect, or an effect that is truly embedded in the local needs. So from global to local, this is I would say that also the mission of our organization, and how our mandate can also be kind of implemented.
Thank you. Klaus, I'd like to bring you in now, because there's often a lot of discussion about how technology and digital tools will make training easy at scale, and it's the answer to meeting our training needs. But I know from rural environments, that's not necessarily particularly useful, because not all environments have the same technology resources and infrastructure. And I know you have a perspective that it isn't just about technology. The human element, the connection, the face-to-face is also important. So would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, this jumps on 2 points. The first one, a bit linking to what was said previously, we need to focus very much on the awareness, on the attitude of especially adult learners who want to learn. By just forcing them into a dynamics, you have to do this or that course, if they don't see a sense in it, especially as an adult, they just move into internal immigration, close up, fulfill what they have to do, but don't process what they're learning. So this is a waste of time. So one thing to add for the previous one about this buffer question, definitely better qualification is a better chance to venture changing circumstances, crisis, etc., but you need an attitude at the side of the learner. Now, on your question, technology as such, online learning, etc., is even in rural areas, I dare say generally now not the main constraint for access. Sometimes you have better connectivity in rural areas than in some urban areas. So the technicity is there, maybe the habit is not there. This goes to the attitude I commented before. If you don't have the attitude, you don't follow the course. So what we find when we go to an increased online environment, talking about teaching and learning, the participants are lost. They are alone because it is not like in a hybrid course or in a presential and then online phase. It's often completely online, and I'm the only student in the whole village. So there's no peer that I can talk with when I have a coffee. There is nobody to give me a kick personally. Oh, I didn't see you today. Where were you? No, you're alone. So this role of a facilitator, we called this 15 years ago in a EU project. We called this e-learning mentors, people that are trained not so much in the topic that is objective of the training, but in creating a dynamics in an online environment is very much needed for a successful implementation if we want to reach those that do not have the habit and the strong motivation to increase their knowledge.
Thank you. Just to let you know, in about 5 minutes, I'm going to open the floor for comments or questions. So prepare your questions that you might have. Andrea, maybe you could just additionally contribute to what we just heard about Klaus, that technology is great and it doesn't allow tailoring of skills, delivery, and a huge range of courses, but it needs to be accompanied by support and mentorship so you're not alone in your journey. And then, Anne, I'm going to be coming to you to ask, who should be responsible for doing all this? But Andrea, we heard from Klaus that yes, you can do a lot of things online, but it needs to be, as you've said, learner focused and learner centered. How do we package and support the digital delivery of learning with the other elements that are so important, the emotional support, the social connection?
I agree that technology is a great enabler of learning. It is a fantastic, it's a formidable means to an end. It should not be the end itself. It should not be unregulated. It isn't. It should be used by people, by learners, by educators that have the necessary competences, not only to use it, but to understand its implications. I was at a conference a couple of months ago on digital skills, and they said that basically, so I'm a millennial, and apparently my generation is the one with the most digital competences, not the one with the most digital skills. Gen Z now is the one with most digital skills. They're digitally native. I mean, I grew up with the evolution of cell phones and computers, but it means that the next generation is very able to use a computer, a laptop, an app, AI, but it does not have the necessary competences that go with the skills. It means that they do not possess the critical thinking to assess whether a source is reliable or not. They do not possess the necessary competences to solve problems that come with the digital technologies. And yesterday I was lucky enough to moderate a workshop on future-oriented skills development, and of course, digital technologies were a big part of it. And whenever we mentioned AI, whenever we mentioned the digital environments that we learn in, there were always concerns. Ethical concerns. There were concerns that it would take out the social dimension of learning. It would take out human connections that are so essential to the learning process itself. So yes, technology is great as long as we keep a human side to it.
Thank you. And let me bring you in here, because the sort of fourth element of our conversation was going to be, okay, so who should really be responsible for setting this up, managing it, delivering it, etc. Because we've moved away from a time when skills was linked to work and your employers trained you for a specific career, and all of that's now changed because we'll have to adapt to big changes. Who should be doing all this? Where does responsibility lie?
Thanks for the question. Well, the simple answer is that it's really a collective responsibility. it's for the public and private sector, it's for individuals, and there are also different geographic levels. Of course, the primary responsibility for skills lies at the national level or subnational levels, but the European level also has a role to play to support member states. And so it's really something that is shared among many actors, which is also what makes it very challenging, because there's a massive kind of ecosystem of people and levels involved. And indeed, I'm not a millennial, I'm a Gen Xer, and I see definitely a change during my lifetime around the expectations about upskilling and reskilling. And I think what's clear now is that it really is going to concern everybody. In the past, I think there was more of a kind of, at one time, you thought it might be more for blue-collar workers who'd lose their jobs and have to retrain. Whereas I think now with generative AI, it's clear everyone, white-collar workers, whatever level of education you have, everyone will have to upskill and reskill during their lives. And when you think about it, with retirement ages going up, a lot of people will spend almost 4 decades in the labor market once they finish their formal education. And so people are going to have to be accompanied during that change. I mean, on the one hand, we need a culture shift so that people do understand that they have to think ahead for themselves and that there's a sense of responsibility. But there have to be also systems put in place to support them, because this concerns everyone. It's of interest to employers, it's of interest to governments. And so we really need systems that will help people. And so one example, I think, of where you see a collective responsibility in action and is, for example, individual learning accounts, which we've piloted from the European level, where we're supporting member states to put in place these schemes. The idea being to empower individuals, to give them an amount of money whereby they can try to anticipate their training needs and have autonomy and agency over their choices regarding training. Because, of course, a lot of people will get training on the job. The vast majority of training happens on the job, and we see the bigger the company, the more likely people are to get training. And that's good, and employers, obviously, there's an important responsibility there. But what's interesting with individual learning accounts is it allows people who may want to change career or occupation, which many people need to do, and to do that in a proactive way. So here we have an example of an initiative that's implemented at the national level that concerns individuals, but of course there's a whole ecosystem of adult learning providers, vet providers involved, and governments, different levels working together. So it's really a shared responsibility. I could say more about kind of the union of skills as well, but I don't know if you want me to stop there.
Yeah, we'll come back to that in a moment, maybe. Alessia, can I invite you to give some reflection? Because, of course, as part of the UN system, you've got a bit of a global view. Are you seeing governments, policymakers around the world sort of seeing that they need to take more of a step in, supporting learning and sort of is this an area where there's a global recognition that we need to invest in forward-looking skills?
Well, definitely it's a difficult question to answer, and I can give my perspective and my experience. So what I do on a daily basis here as a learning innovation officer, trying to support indeed our constituents and also working with other UN organizations on this topic. I would say that from a UN perspective, I think that is forward-looking skills topic is in the agenda, as you may be aware of this also UN 2.0 strategy that has been set at global level, which basically involve all UN agencies to look at a specific skills set that that are required for learning professional, UN learning professional. And this skill set revolves around topics such as data, digital literacy. So also going back to what Klaus was mentioning in terms of it's not just a matter of technology being available, but how we use technology to create meaningful learning experiences. Another area where also the UN is looking at and is pushing the agenda forward is in the area of future foresight and innovation. So future foresight also as a skills and competency set in terms of imagining possible future scenarios. So it's not just about mastering or predicting a specific skill set, but trying to navigate complexity and being comfortable, having the confidence, having also new ways of seeing probably realities and how can we drive change into a continuously evolving context. So I would add on this. And I also appreciated what has been mentioned by my colleagues and speakers earlier in terms of really like this human dimension of learning, very important. So we often look at technology and the access to technology as an equalizer, but this is not just about that. And indeed, it's about how we design learning experiences around technologies. How do people use those technologies to communicate, and therefore, like how can they use it for consumption purposes, and therefore how can then we use it and add a learning layer around. So the role of digital facilitator there, I see it really like as a key central profile in order to help people navigate this evolution, this transformation. So and just to conclude, all this reflection about how can we create new profiles and new professionals that help navigate this complexity. So digital facilitators, mentors, as Klaus was mentioning. At ITCLO, we have been reflecting quite a lot from the point of view of slow learning. And we have been launching a publication on basically what are the rights that each learner has, and what are these, let's say, moments that we can embed in any learning experience, be it a digital, being it a face-to-face or an hybrid one. So how can we embed slow learning in a fast-paced, moving and transforming world? So also this dimension, I would say, connects very much with the human dimension and also with a set of skills that everyone needs to have.
Thank you, Alessia. I'm quite intrigued by this idea of slow learning in a fast-paced world, and also I feel a sort of contradiction between what used to be said, that you need 10,000 hours to really master a new skill, or you know, whether you're playing a musical instrument or you're learning to do something. The message is you need time and practice, and yet at the same time we've got this fast pace of change, and you've got to quickly get to grips with new things. And I sense this contradiction in time. But let me challenge each of you personally. Just take a second to think about it. Think, what skills would you characterize for yourselves as future-looking skills, and do you have them? What of the skills and competencies that you have would you characterize as forward-looking skills? What are the skills that make you feel confident that you can go forward no matter what will happen to you personally, professionally, or economically in the environment around you, that will be the shield, as Andrea gave us? That's an interesting question. And if you've done a little mini internal skills audit, what are the gaps? What do you still need? Financial literacy, for example. The world is getting more and more complicated. The number of insurance and banking products that we have to deal with is much more complicated. I certainly see for myself, as someone moving towards the retirement age, even though it's getting later, I'm suddenly realizing I need a new set of financial literacy skills to plan for life after that. Obviously, there'll be some technology skills, but let me invite you. This is an open floor. Has anyone got an idea? What do you get? What are you missing? What do you need? What do you feel confident to say, yeah, this I feel is a skill that will help me going forward? Yes, please, Raffaella. Here's the microphone.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I have a comment on a meta level, also to the lady who was talking after me. What I am missing is the typical forward-looking skill that everybody could apply, is entrepreneurship. These are the people, entrepreneurs, who are shaping the future, looking into the future, grasping opportunities and shaping it. And from what I hear in this discussion, first of all, it's not seen as a skill or something that you can teach, but you can, of course, teach entrepreneurial skills. And and let me be a little bit provocative here, but what I sensed in much of this discussion is that the learning is still something that the learner is receiving as an object and somehow digesting. And the question is, how can I get him motivated or her to do this or that and to learn these and these new skills? But people are less and less interested in simply functioning and taking up roles in a system and staying in these roles and performing. Yeah? They want to understand, how can I be empowered to be creative and to shape these learning systems and to shape the future and our future, yeah? With the creative or whatever other skills I have. And so I think, there is an Ashoka Fellow again that we have in Austria who is working worldwide, who is working with high school pupils on entrepreneurship, and they're doing a lot of things. So it has a huge scale. But the fact that the word entrepreneur and entrepreneurship is not mentioned, yeah, is kind of worrying me in this discussion, because these are the future change makers, and if you want to talk about forward-looking, and also given the economic situation that we're in Europe, we will need that in order to become competitive again.
Thank you. So there's an interesting question, and it was something struck me very much when you spoke, which is it's the difference between looking at forward skills as a kind of survivorship issue. How do you survive the changes that are coming towards you? Versus how do you become an actor and you shape the future environment? And so, panel, this is an interesting point. And you've put your finger on entrepreneurship as one of the sort of tools to be a change maker. But so, are we being unambitious? And I think you asked us to be bold and ambitious. Are we being unambitious by saying forward-looking skills are how to survive a changing world, rather than how do we be the agents of change, and as entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, commercial entrepreneurs, cultural entrepreneurs, how do we change that? Anne, you've picked up the microphone, you've gone for the challenge.
Okay, I think we need to dig deeper into the topic, and we've only touched very, very superficially on some of the topics. And there are different levels that we need to look at. One is the level of how do we make our systems anticipate better what occupations and skills are going to be needed, and what do policymakers need to do in combination with education and training providers and systems. If it comes to the level of the individual and skills, I think absolutely entrepreneurship is a super important skill. The European Union has recognized this. It's in numerous documents. Personally, I used to work with social entrepreneurship a lot, and in my previous job at the Commission, and so it came up a lot. So entrepreneurship is there. It's also one of the key competencies in the Council recommendation from 2018. But I think underpinning, for me, if I want to use this opportunity to jump onto your question, for me, one of the most important skills to navigate the future is learning to learn. And I think that underpins financial literacy as well. I think if you have a university degree or any degree of formal education, it's not astrophysics, but if you've learned how to learn, you should be able to apply yourself. And it's often just something we think of as boring, but that doesn't mean you're unable. And I think we have to change our mindsets. I mean, I know many people who have university degrees, doctorates, and who say, oh, I can't do that. I can't do this new job. And it's like, well, hold on, you've got learning to learn skills, you've got critical thinking, creative thinking, teamwork, interpersonal skills. Of course you can change and do something else, but people still often very much define themselves by what they studied at university. And I think this is one of the messages we have in the Union of Skills, and which we had during the European Year of Skills, is we've got to become more creative about thinking about our skills. Now, of course, our formal qualifications are important and will remain so, but we have to unpack that. And with the pace of change as well, this is something very powerful for organizations, because we have massive skills and labor shortages. But if they see suddenly, they can understand that some of their employees might actually have the skills they need in a new job if they were to consider them and assess their abilities in a different way. So so I think that this is well, I've kind of thrown open the box a little bit now, but yes, entrepreneurship is important, but and I think we're just starting to dig deeper.
Thank you. We'll come to just letting you know, Klaus, I'll come to you in a minute because, of course, entrepreneurship is such a key skill in tourism. I'm sure you've got a lot to contribute. Andrea, go ahead.
I did well in passing the microphone to Anne because she answered for me. But I wanted to add, yes, key competences for lifelong learning, the Council recommendation of 2018 is probably the single EU policy document that we refer to the most. Because it really sets out what key competences are, and this is also the reason why we keep on advocating for competences over skills. I was the idea of being ambitious, of being bold, is really something that talks to us. Let me tell you this: at the beginning of the year, I was in a consultation with the Executive Vice President Roxana Minzato over the Union of Skills, and she was asking us, civil society servants, please be ambitious, please be bold. And I was like, you know what, she's right. I will be bold. We advocated for a union of competences rather than a union of skills. It didn't fly, clearly. But at least the idea that those key competences are the most portable skills, and this is perhaps an asset because I know that the Commission is preparing the Skills Portability Initiative, is the single most, not the single, but the single skill set, competence set, most important in navigating economic crisis, in navigating jobs. And when you look at job vacancies around Europe, there are not hard skills. There are, of course, but the most present things that an employer asks for are competences. Teamwork, communication, critical thinking, problem solving, and learning to learn is definitely the most important one. It's the key enabler to them all.
Thank you. Klaus, let me bring you in there because we've had some suggestions about the importance of entrepreneurship as a process and a mindset, and that again in tourism, you're part of the Tourism Pact for Skills. What can you share?
I come back to what I said, what I commented before. We need to look at the attitudes, as the previous speaker commented. The point is really to have this wish and, sorry, I need to close the door here. I had some door open in the background. Sorry for that. The point is to look at the attitude of the willing to learn. Entrepreneur skills are just another term for what I would summarize as a mixture of learning or opening the top box. Many people have initiative, but they don't dare to be initiative. So it's more a personal growth in initiative, in curiosity, wanting to learn something new, not just because I have to, but because I'm curious. Creating this part, but the child and the person bring it out again, which is even in adults, kind of gamification of the whole process to make it more fun. Because by strict traditional teaching and learning, I'm sitting in the room, 1 hour talking, teacher tells me I have to write down and repeat what I've been told in the exam, otherwise I don't approve, which still is so much present in the system, and that's another thing. But this doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work anymore with the Gen Z. It doesn't work anymore with adult learners who have a different access to motivation. We need to change a chip. And I would really dare to put a big question mark in the room if the traditional established teaching education system as we know it in most European countries, especially when we look at the vet level, but also at the university level, if this is really, on one side, fit of changing, on the other side, if it wants to change, because this means that people have to change things that have been done for 20 years and they don't want to change anymore. And therefore, if this change, which I think in this group, in this conference, we all agree, is absolutely necessary to be more flexible, to be quicker, to offer new short content in short term when it comes up in the need, not after 5 years. We all understand, but how can we make this work in practice? and I know there is a good intention from the Union of Skills. One idea are the European academies in the different sectors we're talking about, one in tourism within the Sustainable Tourism Initiative. But we already know also, you in the Commission, you already know the resistance you get from the national governments on this. Because they say, no, my system is best, I don't want somebody else to do something above me, different to me, I have the competence. And this is the main thing, we need to jump over this. If we don't learn, if we don't get quicker, if we don't jump over old, established for 50 years structures, we will end up with a lot of good intentions, but no real change.
Thank you, Klaus. We're coming towards the end of our time together, and I posed you a challenge. I asked you to think about your skill set and asked you to think, do you have the forward-looking skills that you will need? So now I'm going to ask to see with a show of hands, how many people feel like there is a gap that you still need in your own portfolio, some more forward-looking skills? Hands up. Okay, so we've got about half the room who've said, in my own internal audit, I've recognized there are some gaps. Looking for the forward, it's the forward-looking. Now, here's the next question. And same people who put their hands up, let me ask you this. Do you know where or how you could get those skills? Okay, so most of the people who put their hands up have said you've got an idea of where you're going. So then the next question to ask yourself is, what's stopping you from doing it? And there you don't have to answer publicly. It's a question to yourself. If you've looked internally and said, I know that I need to build and strengthen my skill set, my knowledge, my awareness, my understanding in certain areas for the future to be the protective shield, etc. And I even know where and how to do it. That's my challenge for you to take away from today. What's stopping you? Because we've had conversations about motivation and etc., but let that be this sort of final message we leave you from this panel. We've heard that nobody has a crystal ball and nobody can predict the future. We can anticipate, we can do foresights, we can do intelligence gatherings, we can try to be less responsive and more proactive, but it all comes down to this. It's yes, an individual focus, a learner-focused approach, but the learner also has to have a sense of curiosity, wanting to strengthen themselves, get a sense of what else they might need to know in order to do it. So I'm going to leave that with you as the final panel. So can we say a warm thank you to Alessia and Klaus, who joined us online, to Andrea and to Anne. Thank you. So thank you very much. We're coming towards the end of our time together, and I hope you enjoyed today as much as yesterday. On my script, it says Tamsin does a 2-minute wrap-up. That wouldn't do justice to the content of our conversation. So I just want to say that we hope we've given you food for thought. We've given you a little bit of an update from yesterday of what we talked about. Yesterday, we talked and looked back over the 10-year development and evolution of the EPALE community and how vibrant it's become. We opened the box and told you a little bit of information about what we can see about how you publish it, what languages you put in, what kinds of things you find useful. So it's really up to you to make this community live further. And today we challenged you to think forward, and we gave you, I hope, inspiration with Federica's beautiful data set. So as part of the materials from this conference, you've got toolkits, you've got suggestions to where to go to learn how to do that, because data and making it relevant and meaningful and approachable is the first step to creating that emotional response for change, the passion and the commitment. So I hope we've given you all of those tools. I'm now going to hand the floor to Anne to make a final closing statement on behalf of the Commission, who funds, supports and convenes the EPALE community. Please.
Thank you. Is it working, the mic? Okay. So thank you, Tasmin. And good, I don't know if it's morning or afternoon at this point, but hello to everyone, both here in Brussels, in person and online. Over these 2 days, we've reflected on the many passages of adult learning, how it's evolved over the past decade, how it continues to adapt to new realities, and what lies ahead for learners, educators, and the wider community of adult learning. Before we bring this conference to a close, I'd like to express my sincere thanks on behalf of the Commission to all the speakers and moderators for their insightful contributions, to the national support services, and our partners across Europe for their continued engagement, and to everyone here and online who contributes to this community on a daily basis. When EPALE was launched 10 years ago, it was conceived as more than a digital platform. It was a shared commitment to connect professionals in adult learning across countries, languages, and systems. That commitment has been fulfilled. Today, EPALE is home to more than 170,000 members, a living, breathing community that every day shares practical examples of inclusion, innovation, and commitment across adult learning in Europe. Over the past decade, EPALE has helped to reshape the landscape of adult learning in Europe by making it more connected. It's brought people together across sectors and borders, made educators more visible and valued, and given them a stronger voice within a community that believes in the potential of every adult to keep learning and contributing. And it's shown time and again that learning helps to build confidence, foster inclusion, and support broader participation in society. As its 10th anniversary reminded us, EPALE is much more than a platform. It's a shared space where those working in adult learning can connect, exchange, and feel part of something larger. And over these 2 days, one message has come through clearly. Adult learning is evolving within a rapidly changing world. Technological progress, artificial intelligence, and demographic shifts are transforming how people learn, work, and participate in society. Innovation in learning must therefore go hand in hand with inclusion, so that technology and new ways of organizing learning can open doors, ease career transitions, and create genuine opportunities for all. Learning today is about much more than acquiring skills for a single job or occupation. It's also about building the capacity to adapt, to think critically and creatively, and to keep learning throughout life, and to be able to participate fully in society. This is the ambition behind the Union of Skills, the European Commission's new framework for turning Europe's skills ambitions into a shared reality. It's the means through which we aim to reach our clear objective for 60% of adults to take part in learning every year by 2030. The upskilling and reskilling of adults is at the center of this effort. It's what allows people to navigate change, to remain employable, to grow in their careers or change careers, and to contribute to the ways we live and work in the future, supporting the economic transitions and social progress that will shape Europe in the years ahead. This is also where EPALE plays a vital role, linking European policy with local practice, supporting educators, training providers and organizations, and ensuring that their experience and voices inform policy and action. Your mission to support quality adult learning across Europe is more relevant than ever, and you are the ones keeping it alive and active every day in your national and local contexts. Through this shared effort, EPALE has built trust, fostered innovation, and strengthened cooperation across sectors and borders. It's helped make adult learning more visible and valued, and shown how digital tools can connect people around a shared purpose. Looking ahead, EPALE will remain a cornerstone of adult learning, helping to turn shared ambitions in our Union of Skills into meaningful learning opportunities, and to make lifelong learning a natural part of everyday life across Europe. Because when adults learn, they gain not only skills, but also confidence and perspective. And when that happens, societies grow stronger, more resilient, and more inclusive. So as we close this conference and mark 10 years of EPALE, I'd like to leave you with one thought. Each learner's story is different, But behind every success, there's someone who made learning possible, someone who opened a door, gave encouragement, or created the space to grow. The union of skills will be built through your work, through the connections you create, the ideas you share, and your belief that everyone deserves the chance to keep learning. So let's carry forward the spirit of these 2 days, the sense of connection, curiosity, and shared purpose that defines this community. Because adult learning is not only about preparing for the future, it's about shaping it together. So thank you and happy 10th anniversary to EPALE. And before we close, also a sincere thank you to Tamsin Rose for guiding us with such professionalism and keeping the spirit of connection alive here in the room and across Europe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne. So we just, but before we close, we want to just share with you a few facts and figures about the statistics about this conference itself. So let me invite Felipe Mantioni, who's the EPALE Community Manager, to tell us, how do we do?
Is this working? Yeah. Yes, it is now. Hello, everybody. My name is Filippo. Yes, it's nice to see you all here. Also, hello to the online people. We have prepared 3 simple figures for describing these 2 fantastic days that we have just been through. But that will give you some context. So first of all, views. Okay, so this actually includes all the channels that we have been using, that we used in the past few days. So this includes, of course, the Facebook community, the LinkedIn community, X community, Twitter community, and also YouTube. So this is a cumulative number, more than 2,000 views in these 2 days. But of course, there are differences among the several channels. In particular, we have more views, for instance, on Facebook. But the average time is actually more on YouTube, for instance, because these are the YouTube viewers are actually the people coming from the platform. So these are actually our strong community. Then we have more than 500 interactions. This is still, posts, comments, likes during the conference, sharing, still from these 4 channels. And then, that the EPALE conference is not just here in Brussels, it's not just online, it's also at local level. So each year we actually invite all the national support service to organize what we call side events locally, on site. We actually are at 11 this year. There are a few, as you know, maybe from this morning. For instance, the Belgium side event is actually taking place this afternoon. So this number actually considers 600 participants on site. Consider what has been done so far. So it's going to increase. So these are the 3 main results that we achieved during the conference this year. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, as we conclude, I'd like to put a few faces to names that you may have heard of to make visible the invisible team behind the EPALE support services. So, you've just seen Filippo. Let me bring on Elisabetta and Sarah. Elisabetta is the event manager. And Sarah is the editorial coordinator, so all of the content that was developed. But also we have, joining us as part of the team, we have at the back, we have Guido Adragna. Guido, where's Guido? Here he is, he's coming to join us. Thank you, thank you. The social media manager, all those interested in statistics that at Malta, the 9 o'clock in the evening, the glass of wine, Guido found me that data. We also have Eduardo Franco, who's the visual designer. He's joining us, I think, online. Maybe we'll be able to see him. Ah, there we have him. Oh, he's taking the pictures. Thank you. We have Mircea Ghiman, who's the project lead. Mircea's here somewhere. Yes, come and join us.
Melinda.
And Melinda. Melinda, hi, come and join us. Okay, Now, joining us online, and we've dealt with them through most of the year, we have Roberta Serena, Claudia De Ramo, and Gianluca Volpe. And that is the help desk, the editorial coordinator, and editorial assistants. So there we are. Hey, say hello.
Hi, everyone.
Yes. And Matilda Raffanelli, who is the technical director, who's out the back, so we'll give you a wave. Okay. And would you like to introduce Antonio?
Yeah, Antonio.
Let's go and join us. This is what makes the conference run, but also throughout the rest of the year. This is the EPALE Central Support Team who work tirelessly to support you in your activities. So a final round of applause to this team, and then I'd like you here standing to stand up and give yourselves a round of applause for the work you did for this conference. And we're about to close our live feed, so should we all turn around and wave at the camera and say goodbye to our online audiences? Thank you, everyone, and goodbye from Brussels. Bye.
And thank you to our fantastic moderator.